Coming up on the CHGO Cubs podcast, friend of the show, Ben Zobrist. I'll tell you why he should be a Hall of Famer. Plus, we're looking at where the Cubs rank or stack up amongst other players at their position around Major League Baseball. And it's time for the Rule 5 draft. Get ready for it with the #1 Cubs podcast in the universe. CHGO, next. Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs podcast. It is Tuesday, November 19th. Cubs have to have their roster ready for the Rule 5 draft. Just in case somebody gets plucked off there, you got to have your names and your 40-man all set and ready. And appropriately, we'll talk about who deserves to be protected, who does not. We're going to look at where we're going to continue our little conversation about trying to find where the Cubs players stack up at specific positions. And we're going to talk about our friend of the show, as you see at the bottom of the screen on the live YouTube feed, Mr. Ben Zobrist, who is on the Hall of Fame ballot. Luke Stuckmeyer, Ryan Herrera, Cody Delmendo, law on the draw, running the ones and twos. I am caffeine-free today. Forgot it. It's in the car. Left it. Didn't have time to go back and get it.
Wait, so you mean it's in the building in the car?
In the car. Didn't have time.
Well, you didn't you drink some on the way, or did you just get it and you haven't even taken a sip?
I had a little bit of cold iced tea on the way here. This was the warm one, to keep the pipes loosened up.
Do you need someone to go downstairs and get it for you?
We're going to fight through it. I'm a professional. I'm a veteran.
Okay.
So
happy to help.
There's softer people in this building than me. Let's put it that way.
Who's the softest?
I am one.
Bragg's limping around with those two knees for a couple months now. Come on, guy.
Look at us starting controversy in the office.
Oh, yeah. I hope you heard that.
Greg Bragg's the softest person in this office. Wow.
Ryan was amongst a group of people from this company that hit it hard last night. Some people hit it hard.
Wait, what?
I wasn't invited. Some
people hit it. It was a invite-only thing. It was a
Ryan Herrera got the invite and I didn't?
That's right. I didn't either, so don't worry about it.
Neither did I.
I barely got the invite.
This is upsetting.
He barely got the invite.
I'm very upset.
He got the invite, though. He was there. He had a good time.
Must be nice. I'm a little offended.
I'm also offended.
I wasn't there.
Yeah, but you're a dad and live in the suburbs. Ryan lives here in the city.
There was only one of us. Anyways, Mr. Ben Zobrist. Okay? Now, this is going to ruffle some feathers. Do I believe Ben Zobrist should be in the Hall of Fame? Here's my thing. I don't care who's in the Hall of Fame. I don't, because it's become kind of a joke. So I don't really care for myself if Ben Zobrist is in the Hall of Fame. Now, if it means something, which it would to Ben Zobrist, then I'm happy to say Ben Zobrist deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I think they're a little stingy with what they do. I think other sports, however, are a little loose with what it takes to get into the Hall of Fame. The problem is the whole steroid thing and whether you want to take players in or out, yada, yada. We're going to play a game real quickly in a little bit. 1 in, 1 out. Who do you want to put in? Who do you want to take out? You got to take somebody out if you're going to put somebody in. I want to give you a comparison of player A, player B.
Oh, here we go.
Okay?
Let's do it.
Here we go.
Is it all based on F-War?
Because I knew Comstock would be here.
Comstock.
I'm including F-War in this just because I want everybody to be happy and some to be mad. Okay? Player 1, peak F-Wars in his career. An 8.7, a 6.4, and a 5.7. He had 10 seasons over a 100 WRC plus. Okay? But his F-Wars, 8.7, 6.4, 5.7. Player 2, F-Wars, 4.8, 3.0, 2.8. Those are his 3 highest F-Wars. WRC plus, 19 seasons over 100. But again, if F-War is the all-be-all, showing you a complete player, Player 1, 3 numbers that were better than anything player 2 ever put up. Maybe more. I'm just saying his 3 best, clearly better than the other guy's 3 best. Now, player 1 was a 3-time All-Star. Player 2 was a 6-time All-Star. Fan vote involved, obviously, right? One player had 1,566 hits. The other had 2,866. A lot more hits.
Whoa.
Also played a lot more seasons. Who are the 2 players? And which player do you really believe deserves to be the Hall of Famer? The one with the better F-WARs? Or the one with more seasons of WRC plus over 100? So and 3 more All-Star games.
So I think the first one is Zobrist. Player A is Zobrist.
I'm not saying yet. I don't know who player B is. Harold Baines? Player 1 is Ben Zobrist. Player 2 is Hall of Famer Harold Baines.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
One guy's in the Hall of Fame. His 3 best F-WARs are 4.8, 3.0, and 2.8. Ben Zobrist's best 3 F-WARs, 8.7, 6.4, 5.7. One guy was a 2-time World Series champion. The other guy was a World Series champion in 2005. Okay? The only difference is 3 All-Star games.
Wait, hold on.
And
what?
A lot more hits.
One guy.
Wait, you said Harold Baines was a World Series champion?
He got a ring.
For what?
For nothing. He was a coach.
He was a coach. Okay, that's not the same.
He showed
I agree.
up.
That's not the
I agree.
same.
Sat in the dugout.
It does not count as a. I mean,
here's where I make my
but
case.
it's not
This is
a
this is
ring.
me making my case.
Sorry, we got to go back to the single. Hold on. Respect the solo.
1 in, 1 out. I want Harold Baines out of the Hall of Fame. I want Ben Zobrist going in his place. One guy had 3 F-WARs, were better than anything the other guy did. Harold Baines is in because he played 20-plus seasons in Major League Baseball. He was a good baseball player. Some would say Ben Zobrist was a good plus. Some would say Harold Baines was one of the best DHs ever. I would say Ben Zobrist is the best utility player in Major League history. And most importantly, he was the World Series MVP on top of all of that. He was the best when it mattered the most. He was the best when a team needed to end 108 years of losing. He was the best. The other guy has longevity, good playing. Are both very nice players? Yes. I believe Harold Baines, if I cared about the Hall of Fame, I would say Harold Baines is probably not a Hall of Famer. Is Ben Zobrist? Maybe. I think he has as good a case as Harold Baines.
Yeah, but was Harold Baines' case good enough? Like
No.
I think we all kind of
No. If I'm doing it and saying are these guys, based on who's in the Hall of Fame now, are these guys Hall of Famers? I don't think either necessarily passes the grade for Hall of Fame. But there's a lot of guys that should be in the Hall of Fame. I still believe a lot of the steroid guys should be in there. So if you want to play 1 in, 1 out, who you putting in, who you taking out? Harold Baines is one of the first people would take out, in my eyes. I would rather have Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa in there than I would all of Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, Roger Clemens. If you want to throw A-Rod in there, Manny Ramirez. Manny failed multiple steroid tests. Yeah. But I still would put all of them in over Harold Baines. And I think most people, when asked, is Ben Zobrist a Hall of Famer, I think most people around, general fans of Major League Baseball, would say, nah, that's not a Hall of Famer. It's a nice player. I'd say he's got just as good a case as Harold Baines does.
Yeah, I don't think that's unfair to say. I would say my thought is that it's probably unlikely that he gets definitely not going to get elected this year.
No,
as a first ballot Hall of Famer, but I think it's just, I think it's unlikely that Ben Zobrist does get elected to the Hall of Fame. I think he was obviously a very good player, and Cody before the show made the point of like him being a utility player.
Yeah,
and because Cody made the point is like he was like the best utility player of his generation. I'm like, well, there weren't really utility players when he started doing that, and then that kind of gave me the thought of like he kind of like is
it's a trailblazer.
Trailblazer in that sense.
Trailblazer.
Like, because he was always a good hitter. We know that, and a guy that could just play all around the diamond, all around the field, like that wasn't such a common. It wasn't as common a thing as it is these days. Like these days, we have utility player silver sluggers, right? Like that's, I don't know if we have utility gold gloves, but I know we have utility silver sluggers because guys are just more, or it's more common for guys to move around the field. So I think that is a point in his favor.
Well, he's obviously a way better defender. One guy was basically a DH his whole career, pretty much, right? First base, DH. My point on what Cody was saying with the utility thing is, I believe Zobrist could have been a starter at multiple positions and given him a chance to have all-star games at those positions. He was just so good at playing all over the place that his manager at the time was like, hey, this is a new way to use this guy. I don't have to put him at one spot. And now we've started to see that trend in Major League Baseball. Again, do I think either guy necessarily is in the Hall of Fame? No, but I don't care. So if they want to both be in, that's okay too.
No, I think there are definitely ways to argue that Ben Zobrist could be a Hall of Famer, and I don't think that's unfair either. Like I definitely think there are fair arguments to make for it. I just think the totality of the career, the numbers. I mean, he did. I mean, World Series MVP. There's only how many of them? Like 100 and whatever. However many World Series have been played. If they've even been giving out the MVP for all those, there's a very select few of them, and he's one of them. So that helps. But I just think when you talk about the Hall of Fame, like I don't know that I look at Ben as having put together a Hall of Fame career. And we love Ben Zobrist.
Yes.
Like I would induct. He would be the first inductee to the CHGO Hall of Fame. In my eyes.
That's right.
I'm going to text this guy and ask him to come on, and he can tell us himself. Do you think you're a Hall of Famer?
That's right.
There you go.
So Drew K-R-E, whatever it says, you realize Billy Wagner, Andrew Jones, and Carlos Beltran haven't gotten in, right? You're pushing for Ben Zobrist over Harold Baines. I'm not saying those guys aren't Hall of Famers either. I believe they are, but like,
well, listen, I'll go that far and say that I do think that he could get in one day. We might have to wait forever like we did with Ron Santo.
That's right.
And Ron Santo was far and away way better than Ben Zobrist, right? And meant so much more to baseball than Ben Zobrist. But with the way that it works, man, like, I don't know, man. I just, when you are, like you said, a trailblazer of a position, I guess, I feel like that means something. Mm-hmm. I'm not sitting here going to die on a hill for it, but I do think that he was a really good baseball player, man.
Yeah.
Like and at this point, with how the Baseball Hall of Fame is doing it, they're either too strict about it. They have these certain situations that you get in. I mean, why not? Why not? The guy was a 3-time All-Star. He won World Series MVP, won 2 World Series with 2 different teams. And you can certainly make the argument he could have kept playing. The only reason he didn't is, well, we all know. And, you know, like he
also like kind of got a very late start. Like he didn't really get like a starting role until he was like in his late 20s. So like,
well, he didn't have the pedigree. Like coming up, he wasn't a top prospect. He was at Olivet Nazarene.
Yeah.
No, obviously
right?
he's got to be able. Like I don't know if he'll make the vote to stay on the ballot, and then the committee or whatever would be the people one day. But I don't know, man. If he doesn't get in, I won't cry about it. I will say though that he certainly deserves a spot in the Cubs Hall of Fame one day. And, yeah, like Ryan said, CHGO Hall of Fame.
First ballot for sure.
First ballot for sure.
No.
So, yeah, it is what it is. I just think that, like, with the way they do it, like, he certainly makes a case that one day he could get in there, especially if Harold Baines is getting in there.
Yes. So I think my main point is, like, he had a really good career, man. He won the World Series MVP, like, helped break the Cubs streak. Like we talked about, the super utility player is kind of stems from what he was able to do as a career or in his career. I just, look at the totality of everything, and I just don't see Hall of Fame. A very good player, a memorable player, a guy Cubs fans will remember forever for what he did for this organization for sure. I'm sure Tampa fans will remember him for a long time, and even Royals fans, right? But I just don't look at it. Look at the totality of his numbers, of the awards, of what he did in his career, and it doesn't scream Hall of Fame to me. Maybe one day he gets in. Maybe one of the committees eventually votes him in, and that's fine. But I don't. On the regular Hall of Fame ballot, I don't know that I see him as a Hall of Famer.
Is he more likely? Is he more worthy than Mark Burley?
Oh boy,
that's for another podcast. But I got to tell you about one of our great sponsors. With Empire Today, Empire Today, you get to shop at home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a low price guarantee. Empire Today is the best place to get new flooring, so of course they have copycats, but Empire can't be beaten on quality, service, speed, and competitors obviously will advertise low quality products that Empire's just not going to carry. Empire's not going to promise the lowest prices because anybody that does that is putting flooring in your home that they probably wouldn't put in theirs. Empire's philosophy is to help you find what you need, not overwhelm you with 1,000 choices and substitutes. What they leave out of their selection is just as important as what they put in. Empire's product team exhaustively combs through thousands of product samples each year to find the perfect styles. They got a virtual floor designer too. Great way to see how your new floors will look in any space. All you have to do, snap a picture on your phone and instantly see how your new floors will look in your room. Shopping for floors at a big box store, that can be a little risky and frustrating. You might be talking to somebody today who was working in plumbing yesterday. Flooring is all that Empire Today does, and they service their own warranties. If an issue comes up, just call Empire. They service their warranty themselves. You don't have to track down the manufacturer's phone number. So schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive $350 off. What a discount. $350 off when you use the promo code CHGO. That gets you $350 off. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/CHGO for details. Speaking of great deals, did you know that ComEd can help businesses save money by becoming more energy efficient?
You know, to be honest, I'd literally never heard of that. I did not know ComEd did that.
I know, Ryan, and that's why I'm here to help you. Yep, the Energy Efficiency Program can help find up to 35% in energy savings.
Oh, did you say 35%?
35.
So what does a business have to do to get 35% off?
It's so simple. All they have to do is sign up for a free facility assessment at comed.com/biz.
If it's that simple, that easy, 35%, why aren't more businesses doing it?
Most likely, they just forgot the website.
Yeah, I guess that could be the problem. ComEd.com/biz, ComEd.com/biz, ComEd.com/biz.
I wanted to see how many times you'd say it. That should do it, Ryan. Terms and conditions apply. Offers are subject to change. Actual savings will vary by customers' energy usage and rate. ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is funded in compliance with state law. I threw that out there. We're not going to actually hit the topic, but it was Burley, Hall of Famer. I believe he's also on this list this year, right?
I think so. Yeah.
What about a Paul Konerko? Yeah. Some Sox fans will make the argument for Paul Konerko.
Another hero.
Mark Burley is on the list.
Personally, I think all three guys, Mark Grace, four guys, are all sort of in the same. They'd all be in the same category for me. I'm not sure it's Hall of Famer, but somebody in the YouTube chat earlier, I'm trying to remember who it was. Was it Chef Penner? Somebody said, if you're going to penalize guys for being bad guys, like here, it was Roberto Blanco. If guys like Bonds and Sosa get penalized for being bad for baseball, shouldn't Ben Zobrist get moved up a little bit for being a good guy? I'm not against that.
Yeah.
I'm not. If you're gonna, he played it the right way. He didn't cheat. Or do you not get credit for doing things the right way? Only check marks when you don't. You know what I mean? Like if you're a kid in high school, if you don't get in any trouble, you don't get a gold star for that. But if you go out and get arrested 5 times, your parents are not gonna be happy. You won't, no gold star.
Burley, by the way, he's already been on the ballot.
He's his fifth year on the ballot.
He's actually remained on the ballot.
Staying on the ballot means he's getting enough action, right?
He had
8.3% last year.
8.3% of the vote last season to stay on. I don't remember what the minimum is to stay. Is it like 5% or something?
I'm not sure about
what it is, but
here's the list: Bobby Abreu, Carlos Beltran, Mark Burley, Carlos Gonzalez, Curtis Granderson, Chicago guy. Torrey Hunter's a good player. Andrew Jones is a good player. Kinsler, Russell Martin, Pedroia, a.k.a. Matt Shaw, Manny Ramirez, A-Rod, Francisco Rodriguez, Omar Vizquel, Billy Wagner. Ben Zobrist is the last one at the bottom. I would say the only one that I can definitely say will get in, Ichiro. I mean, that's
easily.
I mean, my goodness, if Ichiro Suzuki is not in the Major League Hall of Fame, I think there is no such thing.
And he should be unanimous.
Yeah,
he should.
He was amazing.
I know Mariano Rivera was unanimous. Have we had another one since? I don't know.
Like Fernando Rodney, I'm taking Ben Zobrist over Fernando Rodney.
Fernando Rodney.
CC Sabathia or Ben Zobrist. Another interesting case.
CC, oof.
CC Sabathia was a really good pitcher.
Man, remember when the Brewers traded for him and he
Chase
went like
Utley,
13-1
Ben
down the
Zobrist.
stretch?
No. Yeah, I mean, Ichiro is easily a first ballot Hall of Famer, and there's like no denying that. You think Billy Wagner gets in his last year on the ballot, I believe, right?
Man, it's a tough one.
Closers are a tough one. He was an elite closer for a long time.
If we go by James Kolstad's favorite stat, if we go by James Kolstad's favorite stat, Ben Zobrist is 33rd all-time for second baseman in WAR. And I went second baseman because I went and looked it up to see what position he played at most. And he played second base more than any other position.
But that really wasn't his position.
He has a 42.7 career Fangraphs WAR.
Right.
He has a 44-something baseball reference WAR.
Yeah,
so whatever.
Career F WAR Baines is way higher because he played, I think, 22 seasons?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's going to keep adding up from that point. That's why when I did the hidden stats, I said, well, wait a minute. One guy has 3 F WARs. His 3 best are all higher than the other guy's 3 best.
Yeah.
He reached a higher level. In fact, I was kind of surprised, to be honest with you, at the individual F WARs because we sit here and say, man, the Cubs, they're desperate for a superstar. They got to get somebody that's at least a 5 F WAR, right? Like, you got to get somebody that's a 5 on your team. Ben Zobrist had an 8.7, a 6.4, and a 5.7.
Yeah, I mean, he was a really good player for a lot of his career.
Those are star numbers.
Well, there's a reason they brought him in.
Hall of Fame.
8.7.
There was a reason they brought him in. He was an all-star that year, I believe, in 2016, and then won the World Series MVP. Like I said, he had a very good career, a noteworthy career, a career that people are going to remember in multiple organizations. I just don't necessarily see it as a Hall of Fame career. But I mean, if he got in, I wouldn't object to it.
I'm not mad that Harold Baines is in. I really don't care. I'm just saying, like, it's such a flawed process of picking who the Hall of Famers are that it's sort of gotten silly at this point. Really, it has.
I'm just looking at all these different stats. Like, he's top 30 among second basemen all time in home runs hit.
Wait, is top 30 good, though? Like,
no,
33rd in F WAR. I didn't know.
You're
considering how long the Hall of Fame has been around, though, Law.
There aren't a lot of second basemen.
Yeah, but how many second basemen are actually in there?
Yeah, that's the question I'm wondering.
Joe Morgan thinks it should just be Joe Morgan.
Joe Morgan, shout out.
I'd have to go through and find out who are all Hall of Famers. I could go through and assume a bunch of these guys are, but I'm not off the top of my head. I'm not sure.
Stucky Stats tells me that just for this, Ben Zobrist deserved the hands on the head.
Seriously,
now, for winning that World Series, I'd put him in.
Just for him, our clip that we posted of him telling that story.
There's 20 second basemen in the Hall of Fame.
Okay. All right.
I don't know how many of them were like primary second baseman or like. Well, I guess those.
Ryan
are
Sandberg's one of them,
of course.
Yeah. The unfortunate, and maybe we can spin this as a reason to not put him in the Hall of Fame, is I unfortunately think that if he did get in the Hall of Fame, that he would go in with a Rays hat on because he had a better career with the Rays than he did with the Cubs. Now, did he make more of an impact on an organization with the Cubs than he did with the Rays? Absolutely. But if you just look at career stats, I mean, he was at the peak of his career was with the Rays. So,
yeah.
So I think if you just go off by stats, then you would probably put a Rays hat on him. But if you go by impact, what he's probably most remembered for and stuff like that, then I think you would put a Cubs hat on him.
2 rings and a World Series MVP should have some clout to me.
Yeah.
Sure.
Played the best. You were the peak player when it mattered the most after 108 years.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
I like this take from Brady in our chat. Controversial take. If you keep out the PED guys, you have to disqualify Seelig for turning a blind eye.
Interesting.
It's true.
I don't know why Bud Selig is in the Hall of Fame.
Fraud.
Right. Like
he doesn't belong in there.
For creating a tie in the All-Star game?
That was so bad.
And putting us.
All right, let's get to the Cubs.
Yeah,
Rule 5 draft deadline at 5 o'clock today.
Eeks.
Who needs to be protected, Ryan?
Well, I think the number one name, so 5 o'clock to put the deadline to put players on the 40-man to protect them from the Rule 5 draft, which will happen at the winter meetings next month. I mean, obviously, the biggest name on there is Owen Casey. Mm-hmm. Owen Casey's eligible for the Rule 5 draft. this.
There's no way they're not protecting.
No, there's no.
But what if they did?
If
Cody said, just for content's sake, what if they did?
to not protect him, that would be
The reaction for this show tomorrow if they didn't. Oh man,
it would be the shock of the year.
Yes,
if
it
they
would.
didn't, if they didn't get him or they didn't protect him. So he's the number one guy. There are obviously other potential names that could be on there. I mean, you go look at like Ben Cowles, guy they got for in the Mark Leiter Jr. trade, I believe. Yeah, Mark Leiter Jr. at the trade deadline.
Oh yeah, that's right. Mhm.
He's eligible. He's someone that I think he's on MLB Pipeline, the 29th ranked prospect in the system. So not like the super big prospect, but you did trade up one of your best relievers to get him. So it would just depend how they feel. And obviously the process, like you see a lot of names and you're like, maybe they could get this guy, maybe they should protect that guy. But like you have to remember the process is it like those guys that get picked in that draft, in the Rule 5 draft, like have to stay on that team's 26-man roster all year to end up staying with the club. So even if a guy is like eligible and he's in like, but he has like barely any experience at like Double-A, but you feel like this guy's going to be a really good player, like he may still be borderline to be selected in that draft just because that another team may not want to have the guy on the roster the entire season. So it obviously just depends. I mean, there's plenty of names of guys that are eligible. Ed Howard's on that list.
Yeah, he had a better season.
He's
a former number one pick.
Just a lot of injury bad luck the last couple of years.
I should say.
Yeah.
Christian Franklin's another guy on that list. Pablo Aliendo, I think, but like guys that probably aren't going to be selected.
Yeah, that's the roll of the dice. It's not like you're saying goodbye to these players. It's like which ones can you risk leaving unprotected that another team might not take. Like if you don't protect Ed Howard, is he going to slide through the cracks of another team? I would think so. But I can't say that for certain that there isn't some team. The White Sox are across town. They know who he is. Mm-hmm. Are they a team that would pick him up and put him on there? You have to immediately put him on your roster. I don't know. I still think he would probably slide through. That's just a guess.
I mean,
but Owen Casey, somebody would pick up.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like Jordan Nwogu's on this list as well, and like he's someone that like I want to say it was Greg Huss maybe had talked about him on the show with us since we launched. Like one of the times we've had him on, there are plenty of names on here that you could make the argument should be protected, but there are also plenty of names that you're like
can't take them off. For 40,
man. You can't obviously can't add them all to the 40 man, but there's also plenty of the guys that you can run the risk of exposing them to the Rule 5 draft and just kind of hope that another team doesn't take them. It's a risk, obviously, like you said, it's roll the dice, but
can we go through some names that I'm willing to see be removed off the 40 man? Well, yes. Nick Madrigal is number one on my list.
Top of your list.
Nick Madrigal is number one on my list. Albert ALLCITY.
Making space. Ooh, I don't know. Yeah, well.
He's not going to pitch next year.
He's not going to pitch next year, so why would somebody pick him up? Yeah.
Then there's, then they have like some of these other dudes. Like, how do they feel about like Trey Wingenter? They picked up Wingenter.
Yeah,
whatever.
I know who you're talking about.
I can't say his name. Rob Z.
Zastrisny.
Yeah. Rob Z. That's all I'll call him.
Mizzou legend. Put some respect on his
2016
name.
Little
World
Z.
Series
We
champion.
call him Little Z.
We always have to have a World Series champion on the team from 2016, so I get why, they just picked him up off waivers, though, or whatever it was, right? Yeah. From Milwaukee, so they clearly like him. I doubt that they would remove him. But yeah, like Wingenter, and you have, like, how do they feel about Caleb Killian? Like I still am hopeful, but like guy can't stay healthy. It was kind of a disappointment this year because of that. I'm not saying that these all are guys that you should take off, except for Madrigal. Patrick Wisdom going to be on this team next year? This is one of the issues I've had with this organization is like they're holding on to guys too long. So we can go through it some more. We got to take a break.
We're going to talk about where the Cubs stack up at a couple of more positions after the break. But first, Some beers can say they are brewed for baseball, but only Blue Moon is brewed by baseball. Beer and baseball just go together, and no beer goes better than the one that was literally born in a ballpark. Blue Moon was created at Coors Field in Denver. It's the natural choice all season long. Blue Moon isn't just another beer. It's a whole different experience. Why strike out with the same old beer when you can get something that's one of a kind? A beer this good only comes around once in a Blue Moon, but you can enjoy it all season long. We had a super moon recently, by the way. That, you know what a super moon is at my house? More than one Blue Moon. That's a super. That's how you create any night into a super moon. Multiple Blue Moons. Bring the ballpark to you with Blue Moon Belgian style wheat ale. It's one of a kind every time. Get Blue Moon delivered by visiting get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO to see your delivery options. That's get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO. Blue Moon, made brighter. Celebrate responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. I will crack one open and celebrate it when Ben Zobrist enters the Hall of Fame.
I'll crack one and celebrate when Nick Madrigal's taking off the 40-man.
That's why Justin Steele unfollowed you on Twitter.
Why? Because I'm slandering Nick Madrigal like everyone else on Cubs Twitter and every other fan? He objectively was awful this year, man. All right?
You know what goes great with a good Blue Moon? Chilies.
Oh, brother.
Or back to Chili's.
How many times have I had to watch the fried motts?
Ray Chevy is what goes good with the Blue Moon.
Sorry. Also, Ray Chevy.
Also,
well, no. We don't.
You get me talking about
Chili's. You buy the car, you get it home, and then you celebrate with the Blue Moon.
You go to
responsibly, of course.
Pick up your Chili's and your new Chevrolet, right? With the Black Friday sales event going on all month long at Ray Chevrolet, you can score door buster deals on your next vehicle without the door busting stress. Head in today to shop their huge selection of new Chevy models with special Black Friday prices. Right now, take $3,250 up to $13,000 off MSRP. Did I say that right? $3,252 up to $13,000 off MSRP.
Wow.
On the new Chevy models. Or shop over 125 of their vehicles priced under $20,000. As one of the top selling Chevy dealers in the Midwest, you'll always be able to shop one of Chicagoland's largest Chevy inventories. Visit our partner this November at their location on Route 12 in Fox Lake or at raychevrolet.com. And if you heard of Ray Chevrolet, then you also heard of Ray's Price Promise, their guarantee to make your next vehicle more affordable than ever with no price changing, no add-ons, and no hidden fees. No one likes a bait and switch, Luke, ever. That means the incredible prices we're talking about now, you can expect to see the very same when you shop Ray Chevy in-store or online. Shop the Black Friday sales event all month long by visiting Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or raychevrolet.com. They've been serving the community since 1963. Together, let's drive.
Oh, yes. Look at that. Cousin Greg has tapped in. It's Greg Huss, our friend.
There he is.
Says Owen Casey will be added. Other guys that even have a legit chance to be added. Cowles, Rodriguez, Martin, Franklin, long shots, Lee, Scalzo, Santos, Murray, Eliendo. He also said no shot that Howard will be added to the 40-man. That's I don't. With his injury history, I can't imagine that a team would instantly add him to their 40-man roster.
I just threw the name out there because he's a name that people know because he's a former first-round pick.
Right, and I'm only saying the White Sox because he grew up down the street. They would know who he was. They actually did want to draft him.
Yeah. So, and
they're bad.
And I agree with Greg's list. Obviously, Owen Casey's getting added. Like I mentioned, Ben Cowles, Christian Franklin, Rodriguez, and Martin are guys that, the Cubs, like you see it, there's usually a pitcher that's not necessarily guaranteed. That, but 2 years ago was Ryan Jensen. I think Jensen, it was Jensen,
the former first round.
That was way too high on him.
Last year was Porter Hodge. So those guys that
was important then, right?
Yeah. So guys that
important
weren't necessarily these guys are gonna be, or these guys are high on everyone's radar, but guys that the Cubs saw and were feel like we need to make sure he stays in our organization.
Right.
Obviously, Jensen didn't last too much longer, but Porter Hodge is a guy that they kept around and came up last year and did really well out of that bullpen.
Greg says, I'd be pretty surprised to see more than two guys added. And lesser podcasts would point out that this is nothing. They would say this is nothing, Rule 5 draft, but Ryan says, ho, 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 then you might not have had Porter Hodge last year. Lesser podcast. That's why we're the number one Cubs podcast in the universe.
In the universe.
People say.
Now, Mooney and Sahadev are a close second. But in the universe, it's us.
Listen,
all right.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I mean,
is this a rant coming? Do
no,
we need a timer?
No, I guess my 2 cents related to all this is that, like, the organization, it always feels like they're just so unwilling to move on sooner from certain dudes. Like, what else do you need to see? Objectively, this is not just like me being a hater of Nick Madrigal. If you go back to when we first started, I gave Nick Madrigal a realistic opportunity or a chance to win me over as a fan, all right? But, like, there's plenty of people or plenty of players on this list that's like, what else do you need to see? You know what I mean? Like, I don't see how Patrick Wisdom is part of this team next year. I don't see how, as much as I love to stick up for the guy, I don't know how Miles Mastrobuoni exists on this team next year. You know what I mean?
They got to find that utility guy.
Because if they want to implement a guy like Matt Shaw, who is coming off a great season in the minors, and he's playing well right now in winter ball, and, you know, like, they're going to have to add him eventually to the 40-man if they want to actually play him next year. You know, like, there's plenty of names on this list where it's like, you got to take him off. As much as I still hope well for the guy, Brennan Davis, doesn't make a lot of sense to keep him on the 40-man. It just doesn't, you know, like, so that's my 2 cents. Obviously you got to get Owen Casey on the 40-man, and they will do it. But,
unless they trade him for a big name player today.
Yeah, trade him for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., perhaps. Whatever. I'm just.
What
a
segue that is.
I think there's obviously guys on the 40-man roster that won't be on the 40-man roster all offseason, whether it's to open up a spot for Owen Casey and maybe another guy like Ben Collins if you want to protect him from the Rule 5 draft. For any free agents or waiver claims you plan to bring in, like the way the 40-man is set right now, would not expect it to be the 40-man that's set the entire offseason. If it is, then that's probably a bad thing.
And I know I'm going ahead of things and with all of it because like Greg said, and he would know more, and Ryan, you obviously know more than me when it comes to this roster stuff. But, like, 2 guys, okay. Well, don't make this so
harder
hard
than it should be.
Yeah, don't make it harder than it should be.
Yeah.
You mentioned Vlad Guerrero. Interesting, because we've been talking about where do the Cubs stack up at a specific position, right? Yesterday, we tried to take 2 of their best players, Happ and Seiya, because we're trying to see, do they have a top 5 player? We know they don't have a superstar. Everybody agrees on it. They have good players. They have very good players, but they don't have a superstar. So we looked at Ian Happ, and we found Ian Happ could probably make his way into the top 10 in left field, maybe at like number 8, but not into the top 5. And Seiya could make the top 10 as well, maybe closer to 6 in right field, but not into the top 5. So then I went to first base. That's the next spot. Michael Busch had a really nice rookie season for the Cubs. It was a big improvement of what they had there last year. Now, who's number 1? Vlad Guerrero Jr. That's who. Again, this is for Cole Stock. F-WAR, number 1 player at first base was Vlad Guerrero Jr. Number 2, Bryce Harper. Number 3, Freddie Freeman. Okay, I mean, those, I don't need F-WAR to tell me. Those Stucky stats tell you those are 3 great players. Michael Busch isn't on that list, but he is 10th in F-WAR from last year, if that's what you want to go with. Pete Alonso was 12th. Now, would you make that trade if money wasn't involved? Yeah, I think I'd go with Alonso if cash was not involved. So obviously, money factors into some of the. Cody would not. I know Cody. If the money were even and the contracts were even, you would still take Michael Busch over Pete Alonso.
Cody also didn't want Matt Chapman last year. Don't
people
that.
Say people
and
keep
they
saying
really
it, even
do
though
need
it's
power.
not true. But,
they really do need power. Anyways,
well, listen, if they didn't have so many right-handed bats, I'd be more into it. But Michael Busch is one of 2 left-handed bats that you have? I guess 3 if you want to count switch hitter Ian Happ. How much have you sat here and talked about how left-handed bats are important?
It's important. That's Bellinger's
power.
back.
Oh, are you saying that makes Michael Busch expendable?
Also,
well, I've said that. I've said that either
Just trying
guy
to stir
could be
things
traded.
up on the podcast today.
No, I would say either guy could be traded, and I wouldn't be like. I don't think the Cubs are bold enough to trade either guy. But if another team were poking or miss out on Soto and they want Cody Bellinger, well, I'm willing to listen to what the Yankees would offer me for Cody Bellinger. Why not?
And you want to talk about trades.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If I'm talking trades and the Yankees miss out on Soto and they need to still find an outfielder and they're desperate to get Cody Bellinger, well, I'm willing to listen to that conversation. Right?
Yeah.
What if the Blue Jays lose Vlad Guerrero Jr. and they start begging the Cubs for Michael Busch? You're not going to at least pick up the phone and talk to him? Of course you are.
Oh, well, that's why that's when we said, like, there's no untouchables. There shouldn't be untouchables on this team.
Because I believe they don't have a guy that's going to show up in the top 5. Now, maybe it's in the pitching that they do that, but so far position player, would you agree that Michael Busch is no higher than 10th at first base? As good as he was as a rookie.
So run down
and
some
the
of the
contract.
names again. I know we got like Vlad, Harper.
These were at the top. I didn't do all of them. Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bryce Harper, Freddie Freeman, Salvador Perez, Carlos Santana, Christian Walker, Pete Alonso. Those are some of the other names, obviously, at first
Josh
base.
Naylor, Vinny Pasquantino's
Josh Naylor,
on there.
you just happened to scroll over there.
Matt
Olson, you just happened to scroll over there, Luke.
I just didn't write him down.
Did you write Christian Walker in there?
I said Christian Walker,
Vinny
who, by the way, is a
Pasquantino's
free
on there.
agent.
No, I think
Goldschmidt, I think, was dead last, by the way, on this list for first baseman
Was he?
last year. Isn't that crazy?
I think
Father time comes to everyone.
Hey, Mike Tyson, meet Paul Goldschmidt.
I think the way we look at it. Wow. Okay.
Sorry,
That was a shot at Mike Tyson. You sure you want to do that?
that was for St. Louis.
No, I think the whole point of the exercise is kind of like, do the Cubs have close? Like, how close are they to having a star player? Right.
Right.
It's at least part of the point of why you want to do this exercise. And you look at first base specifically, like Michael Busch obviously got potential. He was a rookie this year. He's a little older on the rookie side, but he was still a rookie. You saw a lot of flashes of potential. You saw major improvements throughout the year by themselves, but you saw like that April, was it 5 straight games or 6 straight games of the home run, whatever that was?
Was it
like
6?
It's 5. It was 5, right? Okay, 5. Yeah, 5. I think.
We made a graphic, I remember.
Okay, so 5.
It was a great stretch, though.
Yep.
Yeah, so like that, like you see the defensive improvement, like you see the potential and where he could go. But if we're looking at it like right now, I mean, you're not taking him over Vlad, you're not taking him over Bryce Harper. You're not
Freddie Freeman, come on.
So like when we're talking about like
You
star,
saw Freddie
right?
Freeman.
Yeah,
Yeah, those are superstars.
So if we say like your top, like is he in the top 5? Like no, like those are where your stars are. Like your best, the top 5 first basemen. It's full of stars. So I wouldn't put Michael Busch obviously in that tier, or he's probably closer to 10, if not past that.
Can I play devil's advocate?
Sure.
Okay. So to me, it's Vlad Jr., Bryce Harper, Freddie Freeman, and then the rest. If you just go off offensive stats, in my opinion. Vlad,
There's a huge drop off after 3.
Vlad, 165 WRC plus. Bryce Harper, 145 WRC plus. Freddie Freeman, 137. And then it goes down to like the 120s, the teens, right? Salvador Perez, at this point in his career, would you want him over Michael Busch? Like, I think he's going to go to the Hall of Fame one day. He's one of the greatest catchers of my generation. But like, would you rather want Salvador Perez over Michael Busch right now? Like,
do you want the lower contract, or do you need power, whatever you might be looking for?
Well,
it's about building the right team.
I think it's also how you look at it.
No.
If we're saying like if we're ranking them, I think we're also looking at it as like going into 2025.
Yeah,
like obviously age wise, contracts, like that stuff all matters. But I think the point of it is like 2025. Where does this guy rank? Like, where's this guy rank going into?
Well, you said
and we're only talking about 2024 stats. We're not saying we're not looking back at proven history. So if you're just looking at Vlad Guerrero and Michael Busch, it's difficult to do.
Ryan said he doesn't think he's a top 5 first baseman. So I'm trying to make the argument here. So
that he could be.
Yeah,
he could. I'm not saying he can't be. I'm saying like going into this next season.
So you're saying in 25,
I don't see him as that.
In 25, you think he could be a top 5?
Sure, I guess
he's not right now, though.
Maybe I'm making the wrong argument for this exercise. I guess
he's changing his mind.
But I'm looking at some of these names after those 3 though, and I like Matt Olson and Josh Naylor are probably the only ones that I might want over Michael Busch. Do I want old-ass Carlos Santana at this point in his career? No. Christian Walker, okay, he's been good in recent years, but he is older. And Salvador Perez, again, older. Nathaniel Lowe, okay, fine. I think you could certainly make the argument that even in 24, Michael Busch is, if he's not a top 5 first baseman, he's knocking on the door at least. And we haven't even talked about his defense.
His defense is really good.
Yeah. I mean, he's currently, I can't make the argument that he's a top 5 first baseman. Can I see a day where he could get into that top 5? Sure, because there's other guys getting older. Now I would take Olsen and some of those guys ahead of him too. But to your point where you were saying it's 3 and a drop-off, that's where the exercise started. It was like, okay, where do the Cubs have a star player? And it was like, well, there's a huge difference between being one of the top 5 guys at your position and being one of the top 10 at your position most times, right? Like there's a huge, and then there's a even bigger gap between the guys from a lot of times from 10 to 15. So what about shortstop? We know there's nobody more polarizing probably on this team than Dansby Swanson. Now, I don't know if that's warranted or not warranted.
Remember when everyone was mad at you?
Hap, Seiya, and Dansby. Those 3 are polarizing. It's like being the Bears quarterback at some point in your life. So where did Dansby rank last season? And where would you put Dansby, who is the highest paid player on the team, right?
Yeah.
Where does our highest paid player rank?
Does he make more money than Cody Bellinger this year?
At his position. No, his overall contract.
I don't know.
His overall contract. Yeah, I see what you're saying. You're fair.
They're right
fair.
Around each other.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, first of all, it is a very crowded position. So that makes it slightly different than first base. First base, as you saw, I don't know that first base has as much quality as shortstop has quality. Bobby Witt Jr. is obviously number 1. Gunnar Henderson. Francisco Lindor. I mean, if you want to go 3, that's sort of like the 3 for first base. There's no question that's 1, 2, 3. Now, Ellie De La Cruz, Willie Adames, free agent, by the way, comes in at number 5. There's your top 5 guy, Willie Adames, Corey Seager, Mookie Betts, if you want to say Mookie Betts, although Mookie Betts plays all over the place. But
I think they said he was going back to the
shortstop,
infield.
if he were at shortstop, which if they were going to put him back there, would he fit ahead of Dansby? Yes. Dansby comes in just based on last year's stats, just based on F-WAR for Colstock. Yeah. Swanson was 8th. Swanson was the 8th best shortstop in baseball last year. Now, defensively, where does he rank among those guys? He's probably higher on that list, obviously, right?
I mean, he didn't win the Gold Glove, but
he didn't. But I would put him higher than 8th.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Top 2. Top 3.
Right, and that is some of the defenses.
You can still argue he's number 1. Obviously, he didn't win the Gold Glove, but you could still argue he's the best defensive shortstop.
But that's factored into WAR and F-WAR, whereas I didn't look up WRC plus for shortstop. I don't know where he stands at. But you still have guys below him.
He is
why Cody's here.
And WRC plus for qualified shortstop.
In F-WAR, though, guys below him, Carlos Correa and Trey Turner. Now, I'm not sure I still wouldn't take those 2 guys over him if the deals weren't the deals, right? If the contracts weren't the contracts. So that's got to factor in too. But they don't have a top 5 shortstop.
No.
Defensively they do. But
overall
player, they don't have a top 5 shortstop.
You can certainly make the argument that some of the guys even below him, you're like, would you flip Dansby for this guy? And I think a lot of it would be based off potential and youth, but that's not to put anything against Dansby. It's just the fact that when you're as bad as you were offensively for 3 months, whether it's because of an injury or not, you're not going into 25. There's not a lot of instilled confidence. I think people are confident that he'll play really good defense, but I think a lot of people are really concerned about the offense. And if he hits like he did the last 3 months of the year, which was actually really good, then and more up to the standard that he had kind of set in 23, then I think more people would feel better about him on the contract he's on with the Cubs. So I feel a lot different about Dansby and making that argument to be put into a top, or I feel better about Michael Busch making the argument for him to be a top 5 first baseman than I do about Dansby being a top 5 shortstop. That's for sure. That's pretty clear. Is he pretty clear a top 10 shortstop in all of baseball as we speak right now? I still think so. Yes.
Maybe right around 10.
Right.
Right.
Well, my thing is like, Trey Turner 9 and Correa was what was Correa?
Talking about F4.
Correa was right after Swanson.
He was
in F4.
right in line with Swanson. They both had 4.3. Correa just didn't. He played 86 games this year. Played basically half the year.
But when I talk about other names out there that I think a lot of fans would choose to have over, Mason Wynn, O'Neal Cruz, Anthony Volpe. Those are guys that I think a lot of fans would rather have right now. If you ask Cubs fans right now, would they rather have any of those three guys over Dansby Swanson right now? I think a lot of fans would say that they would. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's how down a lot of people are on Dansby right now. And so, but when we talk about Dansby and we talk about the value that he brings to the Cubs and the value that he brings as an individual player, I think you can absolutely make the case that he is a top 10 shortstop in baseball. But I think a lot of fans would disagree with us on that.
What about if you and you're just talking about the player, right? You're just saying, forget money. These are the best 10 players at that position. Based on this, I say he does fit into the top 10, but I would say he's also probably right at 10. I still would put Correa, and I would definitely put Turner ahead of him if I wasn't counting money. Now throw in the contracts, and you're Jed Hoyer, and you're trying to build a team, right? Now where does he fit into the top 10? For value, right? For what you're trying to build. Is he ahead of Bobby Witt? No. Is he ahead of Gunnar Henderson? No. Is he ahead of Lindor? No. Is he ahead of Ellie De La Cruz? No. Is he ahead of Willie Adames? Well, we don't know what deal Adames is about to get.
He's going to get paid.
I'm going to say it's probably more than Dansby.
Yeah.
So that might adjust where Willie Adames goes. Is he Seager, Betts, Correa? Again, I still think he fits into right around number 10.
Well, I think the argument against Carlos Correa, because like I said, he put up the same WAR as Dansby in a fraction of the game, a lot of money as well, but in a fraction of the games, that's pretty good. But the other flip side of that is he only played a fraction of the games. He played 86 games, so Swanson's 149 or whatever it was. He's not playing. He didn't play basically half the year this year. Is that an argument against Carlos Correa? Because we know he's had the health issues the last few years anyway. I think that's that part of it is you want a guy that can actually be on the field for the majority of the games.
Availability, Cody talks about. Now, what about somebody that just may not have had a great year like Pena for the Astros? Again, if you asked a Cubs fan right now, would you straight up take Pena in Houston over Dansby Swanson? Now, he didn't have as good a year as Dansby Swanson. He didn't. But he's younger, and he sure seems to have great upside. I don't know.
Would you take C.J. Abrams over Dansby Swanson?
Settle down.
The defense is terrible. The defense is awful, but I think he's a better hitter.
You mean when he's got,
or he could be a better hitter? I think there's more
the
potential.
Blackjack table, he's a better hitter.
Yeah, and that's I think potential
Who's
obviously
the
changes the
shortstop?
conversation for me.
Yeah. They don't have one.
A lot of these names that I'm talking about, when you talk about the guys outside the top 10 right now, it's all based on potential. Like Ezequiel Tovar, he won Gold Glove this year, his first real big season with the Rockies. Does he keep it going? That's the question. I can say that about a lot of dudes on this list. I still think you can say that about Jeremy Pena too, because even he won World Series MVP. Was a big part of them winning the World Series in what was it? 2021, 22, whatever.
22?
Yeah,
as a rookie too.
Has his career has taken a little dip since then though. It's not been terrible. He's on. I mean, this year he was a 100 WRC plus. Dansby Swanson was 99. What's the difference? I think the defense is up there for Pena as far as what I understand him from reputation, but maybe they're not too far off from the same type of player.
I don't think the Astros are thinking to themselves, we have to get Pena out of short and we've got to get somebody else in there. They're still confident that he's going to bounce back. Of the two players that we just talked about, Swanson and Busch, which guy's more likely to take a step back next year? From the numbers that we just talked about right now, which guy's more likely to maybe regress just a little bit?
Swanson.
Swanson already regressed because of the offensively, at least this year.
Yeah, is it Swanson because of the age, or is it Busch because of the experience? It'd be interesting to see what the Cubs think of that right now. Like today, if you ask Jed Hoyer, which guy do you think would be more likely to step forward next year, and which guy would be more likely, which guy will exceed projections next year, and which guy might regress just a little bit? Which is more likely in their mind after watching this year? I don't know the answer.
That's a hard question, but I would lean Swanson strictly because of age, because we've seen it with countless other players. And again, that goes in. I think that goes into why a lot of fans are concerned about Dansby going into next year. So, I think a lot of fans are high on Busch, and a lot of fans are down on Dansby as we speak right now.
And I think that almost solely has to do with money, in my eyes. Like, they're looking at the contract and saying that guy's supposed to be a superstar, when in reality, that's not what you pay a superstar in Major League Baseball anymore. Right. Brady seems to think maybe Busch will be the guy. In my question, Brady says Corbin Carroll dominated the league and then sucked. The league adjusts. Busch will step back.
It's possible.
It's possible.
If he steps back, I'm curious to what those numbers that regress. Because to me, it's like, okay, if he becomes a 30 home run hitter, but his batting average comes down or something like that, then I'd be okay with that. Because to me, for the position that he plays, they need him to hit more homers. But if his strikeout rate and especially if his strikeout rate stays the same, if he's going to strike out nearly 30% of the time and not hit 30 bombs, then,
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, and as much as like we've said it, like the Cubs probably would have liked Bellinger to have opted out of his contract just because of the flexibility it would have given them. There is a part of the other side of the argument where if Busch does regress a little bit or just has sophomore struggles, whatever. You do have Bellinger there that can play first base, that can give the guy a breather, give the guy, if you got a tough lefty up at the plate, Bellinger does pretty well against lefties. You could give Busch a day or two. Like, you have ways to build to maneuver the lineup to where if a guy like Busch does have his struggles, you have a guy like Bellinger who can help him fill in. And I think that's also important to know when it comes to Bellinger, because although he is, like I said, someone that a lot of people did want to opt out of his deal, a lot of fans. There is also that versatility or the depth because of his versatility that he provides, which is important too.
Which is also why I think if you really got a good trade offer, you might be selling high on Cody Bellinger if you were to sell him now. Now, the trick is he can opt in again at that same price. So I think he's going to be here. I think Cody Bellinger is going to be on the Cubs next year because he can always return for that large cash the next season. And again, it's not a horrible thing, but it gives them slightly less flexibility. I want to tell you about our Die Hard program before we go today because, listen, again, it's one of the most important things you can do this holiday season. The sun just came out here in Chicago. I'm starting to think about it. It's starting to feel like the holidays. In Arlington Heights, they've got the wreaths up on all the lights already.
So many people have put up their decorations and are actually turning them on.
I've seen some trees in windows.
Please settle down. It has
not even Thanksgiving yet.
Not even Thanksgiving yet.
What are we doing? The Christmas creep. Not a fan.
However, it's never too early to start doing that holiday shopping, especially.
That's true.
Black Friday's almost here. But right now, the deal's already great on the Die Hard program. Great deal. You get access to Ryan's newsletter. You get access to all the great things that come all season long from Ryan from the ballpark. You get the Die Hard card, which is instant Riz, instant cred, as the kids say.
Increases your vibe.
Merch discounts, 20% merch. I saw who was wearing the gray one yesterday that looks like the CTA logo, sort of, but it's our logo. Very nice. Woody, very nice video.
Tony Gill.
It was Tony Gill. Tony Gill was wearing it. Oh, it looks better on Tony, so I have, obviously.
Yeah.
Anyways, Die Hard program, great time to sign up. Show somebody you love that you really do love them. It's the gift that keeps on giving the whole year round. Don't waste your money on a fruitcake, right?
Nope.
Don't go to some holiday party and be like, you know what, I'm going to bring a bottle of wine and a fruitcake, and that'll be my gift. No, you show up at the Die Hard card, and you're going to be the star of the party. That's the way it rolls.
Who's showing up to a holiday party with a fruitcake to begin with?
In 2024, yeah.
That's an old person thing.
That's why.
We're back tomorrow live at 11:30.
Hold on.
Thursday, by the way. Yeah.
Last thing, and this
Real
is just
quick.
to to acknowledge.
Real quick.
Real quick. I'm all for Pete Alonso if you manage to keep Michael Busch. That's it. That's always been the thing.
And good night. Fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.